What up, YouTube? It's Frisky Dingo here, getting back with you guys with another reaction slash review video. Today we're getting into Caleb Plant versus Canelo Alvarez. It's one of the best boxing matches we could possibly get within the 2021 time frame, in which not that many boxers have been able to fight each other because of either COVID or injuries, etc., etc. But this fight, to me, it was kind of lackluster. Caleb Plant really had no power throughout the fight. He didn't really, basically set a precedent in the first 5 rounds. Canelo basically did not respect anything that he was doing in the ring and basically waited until Plant wore himself down so that he could go in for the kill. Now, this is one of the most common things I always notice about Canelo and why I think a lot of fighters aren't going to win against him. It's simply based off of the power aspect of Canelo Alvarez. There's always one clip, and I'm going to upload a video of this later, of certain clips of boxers who end up taking a punch from Canelo, and you could see their reactions. Now, with Canelo, one thing I always notice ever since the Gennady Golovkin fight, Canelo has really brute strength. The fact that he wasn't able to even move Gennady Golovkin at all just goes to show you how strong Triple G's chin really is. Like, it's pretty much one of the best chins in all of boxing currently. Like, he could really take a punch. That being said, if you notice that Canelo just basically did an over right hook, well, I don't know, it was an over right left hook, and if you notice within that fight, like, it didn't really do anything to Triple G. So I always have to say to myself after that fight, can this fighter take a full brunt right overlapping hook from Canelo? And if their chin has been tested and weak, I don't think so. And that's basically the conclusion I came to with my results of Caleb losing this fight. I did not think that he was gonna win. I don't think, after he fought Uzteki, that he ended up taking a lot of shots within that fight. A lot of shots did not look good. In this fight, he was a little bit more selective with his punches, a little bit more selective on how he rolls in and out of his high guard. But other than that, he didn't really do anything too spectacular. The overall consensus is that he wasn't gonna have the boxing ability to really stand toe to toe with Canelo Alvarez. Like, even with his shoulder roll, his Philly shell, it's good, but it's not like, if you look at all the best boxers who use that, Floyd Mayweather, Pernell Whitaker, Roy Jones Jr., so on and so forth, Bernard Hopkins, you can see the technicality to it. And one thing about the Philly shell is that Mayweather perfected the Philly shell to the point that when he is about to get hit with either a uppercut or a regular hook to the body, when he stands there in position, he works out his lower body so much that he's able to keep the angle in which he's in the shell and be able to move around 360. Caleb Plant cannot do that, and that was one of the most obvious things. Why? Because the minute he gets against the ropes, he goes into the shoulder roll, and then into the Philly shell, and then he sits there, dips down, and he gets hit right in the face. That's like one of the most perfect examples to show you that someone is not using that proper technique. And even with Floyd, he would never use the roll on the ropes as a means to pivot himself lower to dodge a shot. He would never do that. That's way too much risk. The only time he would do that is when he knows for a fact that his opponent does not have the reach to be able to counter him rolling off from the bottom. But that being said, Canelo did what I expected it to do. I expected Canelo actually to get him out by the 9th. He actually surprised me with this fight. Didn't really get him out until the 11th. But, congrats to, Canelo Alvarez on becoming undisputed champion of the 168 division. I don't think, honestly, compared to Crawford, I don't think that Canelo has a better undisputed run compared to Usyk. I don't think so either. So honestly, I think Canelo is gonna have to cement his legacy by fighting Charlo and Andre, or go if he was able to move up to a bigger, heavier division at the 170, and be able to face Beterbiev. I think he would do good in those fights, but I really don't know at this point, because when he fought Sergey Kovalov, it was just a really bad fight on Sergey's part. Like, he was doing good in the beginning, and then he looked like throughout the fight he didn't care at all. Like, he didn't care to establish the jab. The way when he fought Anthony Yarde, that was a completely different fight. He literally showed a masterclass fight. He was literally throwing off the jab hook, 1-2, 1-1-4, like just doing crazy things that, that's just very technical. Something that you've seen Alexander Usyk do. It's very common with Eastern Europeans, the way they throw off their combos. They're pretty good with that. And that being said, in this fight, I did not see that from I did not see that from Sergey Kovalev. So that was a very, underrated fight. A very underwhelming fight. And I feel the same way about the Plant fight. It was very underwhelming, because the thing about boxing, what makes boxing such a good sport, is when you get two people of the same class, of the same IQ, the same, power and speed in the ring together. That's when you get the best fights. And unfortunately, I don't believe that anybody Canelo has fought since Lara has been on the scale in which Canelo's on. Absolutely not. James Kirkland, no. Amir Khan, no. Rocky Fielding, no. Billy Joe Saunders, no. Billy Joe Saunders came off literally like a year and a half inactivity. So no, that was a bad fight. James Kirkland did the same thing. He came off for 2 years, bad fight. Let me see. Callum Smith, I thought, was a good fight. That was a good technical fight. So I give Alvarez that, but Callum Smith isn't a good boxer in the sense of he fights kind of like a European, just like his brother and pretty much every other European fighter that comes out of Europe. You get a lot of the times what you saw what happened to Anthony Joshua, where they just stand there and sit tall with their chin up, and they're not really good with the technicality of boxing. They're good at standing and just throwing off punches. But one European fighter that's really good technically, of course, is one of the other undisputed champions, Josh Taylor. Now, Josh Taylor, he's amazing. So if anybody fights him, that's why I think Taylor versus Crawford is going to be a really good fight, because Josh Taylor is a good boxer. You are not going to just go in there. There's no way you're going to brawl Taylor. There is absolutely no way. It's not happening. So overall, I think Canelo did exceedingly well in his undisputed run, in the sense of showmanship, being able to knock these guys out. But I do think that his legacy will be cemented with actual fights against people of his tier level. I don't think that, when the history books close it, that we're going to say, Billy Joe Saunders, someone who, was just convicted of using PEDs, vacated his bail, wasn't making weight. I don't think, Avni Yildirim, Rocky Fielding, I don't think Caleb Plant, I don't think, Callum Smith are these fighters that cement you. As you know, it has to be a fighter of notoriety. And right now, the fighters of notoriety are going to be Charlo and Andre. And that's pretty much Demetrius Andre. And that's pretty much it. Like, if he beats those two fighters, and David Benavidez, I do believe that his legacy is cemented. But the problem with David Benavidez is that he's way too young. I don't believe that David is in the proper position to really fight Canelo. What is he, like, about 24, 25, maybe 25 now? Maybe in when Canelo is leaving out, he could fight David. But I don't think that's a good fight right now. But Charlo and Andre, I do think. Now, the other brother at 154, he'll never fight Canelo. He already stated he's not moving up. I don't fight no Mexicans in my division. You don't got to be mad at me. So you already understand what kind of talk that is. But for The other brother at 160, I do believe he has the potential to fight Canelo. Now, his last couple of fights have been sloppy, so I do think Canelo it will end up dominating Charlo. Andre's the only person, Demetrius Andre is the only person who I do believe would give Canelo the ultimate battle. He's good with his technical skills. He doesn't leave his chin out. He doesn't leave himself susceptible to getting punched. And he's shown the elite boxing skills. He's shown lateral movement. He's shown, a good jab. So overall, I think Canelo could really bring it a real cementing legacy with Demetrius. Other than that, like I said, congratulations to Canelo. It was a good display, but I do believe that he can do better in these next up and coming fights. So hopefully we get that. But it's really great for him to be undisputed champion, because that's a rarity. You don't get that many undisputed champions in boxing at all. It's pretty actually funny how many undisputed champions we have. But for me, my personal favorite boxers, both of them are undisputed champions. So, I'm a big Crawford fan, and I'm a big Alexander Usyk fan. Alexander Usyk has always been one of my favorite fighters. Once again, I'm a southpaw myself, so I always have a heart for my other southpaw brethren, because we bring the war in the ring. People get mad, but that awkward people love it. So southpaws till we die. But other than that, hopefully Canelo, we see something good happen within the next couple of years. So if we get into any more news of boxing, hopefully we have the Porter Crawford fight that will happen. Hopefully it happens, no injury before the fight happens. So I'll make a review on my prediction on that fight, and then we'll get into the next one.